The following podcast is intended for mature audiences. If you enjoy our work, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow the links in the description. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucci, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
I was recently unfrozen from carbonite.
Yeah, we were going to do the whole bit at the beginning where, I go in and we do a big Jabba's Palace bit, but then we realized, no. So, instead...
I didn't know about this bit. I have my Slave Leia outfit I could have worn.
I'm not.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh, let's get on with the podcast. So, last week and the week before it, we did video games and movies. 5 of each that we think, if you experience, would help you understand us and our tastes in the medium. This week, we're doing TV series.
One, because it's the last of the various different, versions of this that are going around. And 2, because TV and movies are pretty similar sort of mediums, so we want to do video games in the middle as sort of a refresher. So now we're winding out with the stuff that comes into your living room, as it were. The things that are close to your heart because you watch them for a lot more time than you spend with a movie, but not as much time as you spend with a real good video game, I think.
Depends on the series.
It really does, doesn't it?
So the way this goes is... The boy is going to list 5 TV series he thinks are going to be, good for someone to get a vibe from me. I'm going to list 5 TV series I think someone could watch to get a good vibe on the boy. We are going to reveal our own personal 5 lists, and then we will close out the podcast with something incredibly witty, and then you will hit the like button and subscribe.
You could do those last 2 steps anytime.
Yeah, that's if you want to get ahead of us, then you're better than us. How great would that be?
So, starting off, I'm not going to try and get too hard chronological with this, but this list is sort of made...
Chronological?
You'll see.
Okay.
This list is sort of made... I made it thinking in like a timeline. A good way to understand... White would be, and his taste in television more so.
If you nail all 5 bits of my list,
would be to watch these. It gives you an idea of not only who he is, but how he's maybe developed his humor and that sort of thing over time. There's some that might be slightly out of order, but I think I've got a handle on this. The first is both the first because I wrote it first, and because. It might be one of his earliest influences as far as I'm aware. I haven't known him his whole life, obviously. And also because it is the most literal, if you want to understand White when he talks, it's probably a good idea to watch The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah, I do make a lot of dumbass Simpsons references, don't I? I've managed to force the name Sex Cauldron into a role-playing game recently, and that has been no end of delight for me. I thought they shut that place down!
So, that is the most literal, but it's also very foundational to how... I have parentheses good in here, just so we're clear.
I stopped watching The Simpsons after a certain point.
Everybody did.
Everyone did.
It's a different point for everyone, but...
Well, it wasn't even like the show started getting bad. I just...
moved on.
Had other shit to do on Sunday nights.
So, but it's very foundational into how he structures a joke, at the very least.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a good way of seeing what the base for the soup is, as it were. What's your stock?
I think that's a really good observation. I fondly remember back when how I developed into enjoying The Simpsons. When I first was curious about it, I wasn't allowed to watch it. So, it was definitely one of those forbidden fruit kind of scenarios. That made the show all that much more important to me when I did finally get to watch it. So that's a very good pull, very good observation.
The next one I have is these next 2. I don't know which one you actually watched first, but I feel like it's better to get one before the other. And the next one I have is Daria. Because Daria is, if I was forced to try and guess at who he was and then distill White as a teenager into a television show, I'd probably end up with Freaks and Geeks. But Daria's pretty good. No, I would end up with Daria because it has a lot of different elements. And it comes back around later, and I'll get to that too.
Oh, interesting.
But it has a lot of different elements for what you find compelling, not just funny, but compelling about characters in fiction.
Sure, yeah, I would agree with that.
Both Daria herself, as well as Jane and Trent.
Even Quinn.
Yeah,
honestly.
even Quinn, to a certain extent. I imagine back when you first watched this, you found them very compelling.
I still do. We watched most of it recently, and it was...
I'm going to come back around to that.
Okay.
The next one I have is Friends. This is the other thing you need to have watched to understand him when he talks. Because if it's not a Simpsons reference, it might be a Friends reference.
I don't pull those as much as I used to, but, like, Friends was a very big sitcom for me. My mom and I watched it all the time. We watched it live. We watched the reruns. So yeah, that's a good choice.
It's also a really good way to get an idea of the kind of people he likes to be around. I don't just mean Chandler, because everyone, the people who don't want to be around Chandler, I probably don't want to be around you. But Phoebe and Joey more so than Chandler. Monica to a lesser extent, and then maybe Ross. Early seasons Ross.
Ross is probably my favorite character in the show. I get really frustrated when people talk shit about him because everyone on that show is shittier. It was the 90s.
Yeah, everyone on that show. No, none of the friends are good people. Ross gets very cringy for me sometimes.
He does, but it's part of his arc, so whatever.
Yeah, those are the people he wants to hang around. So, and it's the show that most recently we have sat down and just sort of gone, you know what, let's just give up and watch the show we know we'll like. Because it's home to a certain extent.
That's fantastic.
The next one I have is sort of the next step after Friends. Poor cat, he's having a bad dream. The next one after Friends is King of the Hill.
Good choice.
This is sort of the next step in the evolution because this is when we started to experience a turn. And this is when
I see like a graph and it just like goes down.
Not down, just onto a different axis. Because this is when Daria comes back around. Because this is where you stopped sympathize. This is as White ages, he stops sympathizing with Daria as much as he does Jake Morgendorffer.
It was something of a realization moment for me.
It's the part where you stop being like, you stop being invested in like, when you started being invested in Hank.
Yeah.
More than anyone else in the show. That is a really good. That's why I kind of want to give these to someone in order.
Sure.
Because I feel like they'll take that same journey where you'll get to the point where you would rather know what's happening on the Panda Cam than watch Sick Sad World to a certain extent.
Yeah, no, I feel that, man. I feel that.
And King of the Hill is very much like that, and it also has a lot of fun characters. It has a lot of characters he would not prefer to be around as people.
That's the thing.
But it's a funnier show.
Okay, I might, and I'm not lending necessarily any credence to this one way or the other. I think it's an observation that bears conversation, but longer and more in-depth conversation that we get into on the podcast. So let's agree with you that the characters on Friends are the idealized versions of who I'd want to hang around with. The characters on King of the Hill are who I get.
Oh, that's fair. And I'm being sort of overarching with this. I'm not trying to be. Sure. Then the final one, the pinnacle, the peak of the show you should watch to understand White as he is today, once you have all of that previous context, is BoJack Horseman. Because it represents sort of an evolution of all of the stuff I mentioned previously and all of the things he likes in television into just one specific formula that really fits where he's at.
That's deep, man. And I feel a little shitty for not being deeper. In fact, two of these, because they're both on here, are going to sound like I'm dragging you, and I swear I'm not.
I of all of the ones, of all of these, I mentioned after the podcast to White that after we did the movies one, I felt like I didn't really engage with the question. I just listed movies he loves. So with video games, and more so with television, because I kind of got a good snapshot, I tried to engage with the question more. What could I show someone to show, at the very least, be able to have them watch this and then they know what White likes in television, and possibly can maybe get an understanding of who he is as a person. That's what I wanted to get to. I wanted to actually engage with the question more, and I felt like I did the best on this one.
I think you did pretty fantastic, my friend. I will go ahead and get this out of the way. My list for you, my list of 5 for you, I also have listed Friends.
Yes, that makes sense.
We're of that age bracket where I think if you did this exercise with a lot of people who like being funny and who like sitcoms, and that sounds super specific, but
it's a big net,
especially in the 90s to 2000s, age, developmental age range, let's say. You would hit a lot of people who were like, oh yeah, Friends. It was iconic. It was everywhere. You were kind of, being the weird guy to not be into it. And I'm usually that weird guy, but this was one of those exceptions where I was like, nah, this incredibly popular thing is fucking amazing, and I'm going to enjoy it. Thank you very much. And I think the same thing generally kind of happened to you.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Looking back on it, it's... I'm sad that I can't enjoy the show as much as I did back in the day. Not because I agree with Tumblr about Ross. I don't. Tumblr is wrong as always. But because of all of the Friends, his storyline gets very uncomfortably cringy.
Sure.
Especially in later seasons.
Sure.
So...
Well, the show does that Flanderization thing that happens.
But I like the Flanderization that happens to Monica and Chandler and Joey and Phoebe. Rachel just becomes an awful person, as opposed to being a kind of shitty person. And Ross becomes an awful person who is actively psychotic. So, and it's funny, I have trouble seeing it because it was so very much part of my childhood that I feel awkward watching something and being and cringing this hard over it.
And it's an interesting comparison because I'd say the more recent version of that show is How I Met Your Mother.
And spoilers, that is not on my list.
It's not on my list either. I had considered it briefly, but only in passing. It was a good show. I liked watching it the first time through. I think the humor's still really tight in a lot of places, but on that second watch, knowing what you know and having maybe the distance of adulthood or maturity or whatever the fuck you want to call it, or even just the distance of a second viewing, you could look at some of those characters and go, wow, what awful fucking people. Why would they hang out with each other?
And I don't like doing that with Friends, but that's why I don't shotgun the whole run like I used to back when I was a teenager. Because as a kid, I was living with my sister, as a teenager, and she had all of them on DVD, so I would just shotgun the whole run.
Right.
I didn't do that anymore. I like to curate my selections. I avoid the cringiest Ross episodes and have a much better time.
Sounds good. Even when we sat down, we were trying to find something to watch on Netflix and couldn't find a reason to get into most stuff. We both just settled on Friends. We skipped past a couple episodes. We were like, I don't want to watch this one.
I could give this one a pass. What's next?
What is next? Okay, so I'm gonna split these up a little differently than I have them written here. I would say very important. You might notice a theme in most of the things I picked for the boy. Batman the Animated Series.
That's really good. That's not on mine, actually.
You did that twice now.
And it's about Batman both times.
Yeah.
I was just thinking around it, but it's a really good show, Batman the Animated Series, and I'm not going to list too many more of that genre because they might also be on there. But basically the DCAU in general, I really, really enjoy. I have a different thing listed here that, honestly, on reflection, might get replaced with something you mentioned, with that or maybe something else. So let's hear. Because you're right.
I mean, there might be some discrepancies in some specific instances that are not quite right, but I'd say overall it's your favorite version of Batman and Gotham.
Yeah,
And, like, you being a Batman fan is so much a part of who you are as a person.
No, you're right. That's a really good point.
It's incredibly necessary. And it's also something that you and I both hold very dear, but you champion a lot louder than I do, is that Batman the Animated Series never talked down to kids.
It didn't. I love that about it. It never sought to be better than its audience.
That was very important to you as a kid then, and it's very important to you as an adult looking at kids now and getting what kind of entertainment kids are getting.
They're just little people. They are. They're not morons. Don't talk down to them. It's not.
They're tiny
fair.
sociopaths. Be nice to them.
Yeah, no one's taught them what empathy is yet.
And by that age, they're usually all right. Also on here, I have the Mythbusters.
Really? I would not select that for myself.
And perhaps it's because of how you and I hung out, but you and I used to watch a lot of Mythbusters, and it sure as hell wasn't my decision. And I don't mean that as in I didn't like the show, just that you were like, hey, come look at these silly men explode things.
It's a fun show. I just wouldn't consider it to give... Because I'm worried that if someone took that as, like, this is what you should see as the boys' taste, they would give me a lot of stuff I'm not interested in.
And that's less about your taste in TV, compared to its sister show that I have listed here, and more about you as a person. You advocate for the scientific method, even in places where it probably shouldn't be considered.
Disagree.
Of course you do. And always with a sense of humor and a sense of fun as well. And you are a man who loves and appreciates science. As I said in the previous podcast, how you love and appreciate history, and Civilization being a good choice for that. I feel the Mythbusters is a good choice.
Well, that's excellent. Yeah, that's good.
Let's see. Number 4 here, we'll call it. You have tried to get me to watch a lot of television shows. There has been none you have railed for more than Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's a really good show. I honestly, like, it's one of those things where I love that show. Part of why I stand for it so hard, as it were, is because I feel like if you got past some of the early bits, which can be a little I think you'd really love the show.
Sure.
It's part of it.
And part of that is it's a personal journey for me, and I have no problem mentioning this on the podcast, is that I tend to have a problem with first seasons or first couple episodes that aren't very good. Because as much as I don't mind spending my time staring off into space or refreshing Tumblr again,
you rail against the idea of spending time investing in a show if it's not immediately good.
That doesn't give me something to believe in.
Yeah.
And Avatar did give me more to believe in than I originally thought it would, but I also think it's just... It's a really good version of fantasy to show off the kind of fantasy you like that isn't, say, Game of Thrones. And I suppose Game of Thrones could be on that list as well, but...
I didn't end up on my list because it's just so cynical.
Basically, yeah. I think between the two is honestly where the magic happens, but...
The Dresden Files TV show is bad, so...
But I think Avatar is probably a nice place to start, and I think people would get a lot about your personality and a lot about what you like out of entertainment, period, by watching that show.
That's smart.
The last one I picked because it's a TV show version of what you watch on YouTube all the time. So if you tried to tell me this wasn't the kind of TV show you watched, you're a fucking liar, and that's how it's made.
Oh, it does sound like you're dragging me. I like that entertainment, but I don't think that would be a good thing to introduce to someone to give me an idea, to give them an idea of what I like, because I don't think it would work well.
Well,
because
now, in the sense of trying to get them to advise you to watch something, I agree. I find that you prefer to come across this kind of stuff on your own.
Yes, that's basically what I was going to say.
But, like, if they were asking, just in general, hey, what kind of stuff does he like?
How It's Made is fine.
It's got to be on the list. Or some YouTube show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, YouTube is different.
YouTube is different. Hello out there. Like and subscribe. Don't touch that fucking bell. I do not need to send you a personal email. I have to write those. Did you know that? I have to write every individual email. When you hit that bell, don't touch it. That's rude.
Don't lie to the listener.
He knows better.
Ultimo Dragon is not a YouTube savvy. That's not fair.
Okay, that's fair. No, I don't actually have to write those emails.
All right. That's fair. Like, it is. Sure. It's something that I watch a lot of.
And in that sense, and I'm not trying to, call your shots or anything, but, like, I had other thoughts on there. Buffy would be a good choice, or Angel, perhaps. Stuff that you came from an interesting perspective, understanding how you talk or how, your mind works. And I think things like Avatar for being fun and still serious, and Batman for being serious and still fun, and the veritable Gork and Mork of TV shows. And then, of course, that Friends sauce that I suppose is the Simpsons equivalent for me. All very important, but I feel comfortable in my choices, if perhaps they're not the most accurate in the world. So why don't you regale me with your truth?
Okay, fair enough.
What are
I mean, Friends is on there.
Okay.
Friends is definitely on there because, much like White, if you're going to understand me when I talk, you should probably have at least absorbed some amount of Friends.
It's necessary for knowing that all of your dripping fucking sarcasm isn't actually mean-spirited.
Exactly. Like, I'm sarcastic a lot, and I sound very mean, and it's not meant that way. I'm just having a good time.
Yeah, this is what would be a funny joke, and sometimes mean jokes are funny, so long as they're not actually hurting anybody.
Yeah, so long as they're not #too-real.
Yeah.
The other one, Buffy's a good pull for learning how I talk, but the other one is, much like I got Simpsons and Friends here for you to know what the fuck I'm saying, you probably should have also watched Scrubs.
I don't think of The Devil Show, but that is accurate.
I love that show. I love everything. I love all the way up to the last season, and then there was another season I heard after the last season, but that can't be true because the last season is the last season. Shut up.
Oh God, I happen to think that we recently put an allowance on Batman and Robin because worse things exist.
Yeah.
What if something happened and that foretold myth of an extra seasons of Scrubs had to be actualized?
Ooh, I would not. I don't want to.
Scrubs season 10. It's even worser.
No, thank you. But I love that show. I even love the later seasons where it kind of lost the plot a little bit and got a little bit flandery, as it were. But especially the early seasons are good. I quote them constantly. And look, if I do a very long rant, I have either peppered at least some Dr. Cox quotes in there, or it is literally just one of his rants. And I do those a fair amount, and it's really informed how I approach long, like, comedic bits. So if you want to understand how I talk, Scrubs is a really good way to do that. And it's also a really good way to understand what I like out of a sitcom.
Yeah. I think if you could rearrange the tone of the episodes of Scrubs and shift some of the seriousness of season 1 and 2 to some of the stupidness of season 7 and 8, you might come out with a much more even-toned show that's easier to digest. But I think they're all very important tonally, and I would agree that that's something that you really... That's
another show that when I was a teenager I think I've watched the first 4 seasons of Scrubs like 7 or 8 times. So, the next one I have is the one that I love, and it represents a genre of show I'm really fond of now, but on balance could have been replaced with Batman the Animated Series, or at the very least with the DCAU as a whole. But it's Luke Cage, and I picked Luke Cage because of all the Netflix Marvel shows, it's the one that has been the steadiest in terms of return on investment. I think the first season of Daredevil is better, but if I'm picking a whole show, you gotta go Luke Cage, because seasons 1 and 2 were good, and 1's iffy episodes were less iffy.
2 didn't have iffy episodes.
No. So, and it represents a really good, like, serious take on these sorts of characters, on this sort of story that I love, because there's superhero stuff in basically all my lists, if you notice.
Superheroes are cool, man.
Yeah, they are. And I really enjoy the Marvel Netflix shows in general, and I think Luke Cage, if not the best of the best, is the most reliably good. The next is Stranger Things.
Okay, right on.
Because...
Yep.
It's just, if you're going to understand what I want out of a story, at this point in my life, Stranger Things is a real good way to do that.
Yeah, that's just blows literally all of my picks except for Friends out of the water.
And it tells a story in the way I like, with the tools that I like, about characters that I find compelling and fun. And just if you watch that show, you'll and then use that as a guideline to recommend stuff to me, you might have a decent shot with just that show. The next one is King of the Hill, because it's the point in my life when I started to sympathize with Hank more than someone else in the show. That was my watershed moment, is when, not the first time I watched King of the Hill, but we were back in the day, we used to play World of Warcraft and watch King of the Hill. And that period in my life was very important for my taste going forward. So I feel like it's a good watermark for a difference between me beforehand and me afterward.
No one says Afterhand. That's a cool supervillain name.
No.
Afterhand.
Saying it in a cool voice doesn't make it better.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Okay, Lego Batman.
Me. God, boy knocked 3 right off my fucking list with his. Compared to my shitty ass The Boy list. Boo. Poop emoji.
I thought it was good.
No, I'm just playing. Yes, definitely 110% King of the Hill, Daria, and BoJack Horseman. For reference, BoJack Horseman is issues that primarily through BoJack I went through years ago with less drugs and alcohol. So much less that it's basically zero. But it's very helpful to reflect, and there's also that really human element to it. I recently, since I caught up with season 4, subbed to the subreddit to see people talk about it, because it feels similar to Californication, as I've mentioned before, but otherwise a lot different from most of the shows I've watched. And someone described it as an existentialist comedy. And you don't really get that in TV in general.
That's true. The Californication premise, the Californication comparison, the difference for me is I can keep watching BoJack Horseman because BoJack does things to deserve the universe shitting on him.
BoJack shits on himself, let's be fair.
Yes. Hank Moody never did a damn thing wrong.
He did like maybe 1 or 2 things, but then he apologized the rest of the time. But anyway, King of the Hill, it's something I watched when I was younger, and I kind of liked it because it was funny, but it was really, that same moment where we went back and watched it together, like, it wasn't like, oh, I sympathize with Hank so much now. I always really liked that character, but it's nice, He's got a good family. His wife is horrible, but, he's got good people around him.
She is just a garbage fire.
And she gets worse as the series goes on. But
in a really believable way.
Yeah.
In a way that, well, she's already gotten away with all of this. Of course she'd think this was something she could do.
I don't know. Like, it's... I guess it's the opposite end of the spectrum from BoJack. It's not... It's less existential and it's more slice of life.
It is very much... It's King of the Hill is an American slice of life anime.
That's a strange phenomenon. You've seen that on Tumblr, right? How Japan's way into King of the Hill?
Because it's a slice of life anime.
Yeah, but, like, they're really into it. And, like... God, look it up, listener, if you have the chance, because...
I wonder if they love Junichiro Hill.
That experience you get from, like, trying to figure out the original Japanese and seeing how different it is from the subs or the dubs. Japan has that with King of the Hill, and as
they have a subs versus dubs community. It's fucking amazing. They do.
It's fucking delightful. And Daria, for all the reasons we previously mentioned, that was several summers of my life, was sitting at my dad's house on the computer doing whatever, Once MTV got through their morning block, and usually at that time I was watching USA anyway for like whatever Ernest movie or Ninja Turtles or Hackers was on.
Fucking Hackers.
Once that was over, it was MTV time, and it was either music videos or Daria is basically all I watched, and I was that magic age bracket.
I would give a lot of money to get Daria with the original soundtrack.
I would too. It
makes a difference.
I see how it does, because it's a lot of the soul missing in the rewatching it, but I can still rewatch it. I'd like to rewatch it again. I started and I didn't finish it, and that was not satisfying. So, but it's been so long that I might have to start it again. We'll see. Anyway, I do actually have 2 other ones on my list here. One I'm surprised you didn't pick, and that's the original run of Roseanne.
Oh shit! Oh. Damn, I need 6 spaces.
Right? Friends isn't on my list, because while I agree you probably should watch it to know how I talk, Simpsons was very good at that. Roseanne was how I felt as a kid, man.
It's... you're right. Like, you like Friends, but if I had to pick between the two, Friends is the one that would get bumped. Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
And this is TV for me in general, and that's kind of funny how... It really describes me very well, the way, and you pinpointed these things for me, and then mentioning BoJack, but I like human stuff. I love TV shows about superheroes and about wacky characters and about, vampires or whatever. They're fun or interesting, or what have you, but I like humanity. I like characters. I like people that are mixed shades of gray, that they're trying to be good people, but they fail sometimes, or they're generally shitheads, but they can overcome. I love that shit. Roseanne has that shit. BoJack Horseman has that shit. Daria has that shit.
Early Simpsons has that shit.
Early Simpsons does have that shit before everyone became Flanderized. That's a trope, by the way. Go ahead and look that up, because I don't feel like explaining it.
Yeah, we've mentioned it like 8 times. Just look it up. It's going to be quicker for both of us.
And King of the Hill, if I didn't say that already, has that shit. And the last show on my list, I wanted to pick something serious. I very strongly considered Luke Cage, because I do enjoy watching Marvel shows. I love Marvel. I love superheroes. The TV shows can be very good. Luke Cage is definitely the best of them. But I went for Longmire.
That's not surprising.
It is not surprising, but
it's the serious Walker Texas Ranger.
It is, and it's got some human elements. Not all of the characters are always good people. There's a lot of rough things to deal with. It's got really cool mysteries, and I do love mysteries. And now I'm forgetting Mysteries Inc., which is one of our better podcasts. I don't know if I put that on my list, but holy shit.
I don't think it would be a good way to tell either of us for someone to see our taste in stuff.
But I recommend it.
It's a good. Just because the show's not on this list doesn't mean I don't love it. I love Mysteries Inc.
Yeah.
I think if someone were to try and get your mom's taste in television, Mysteries Inc. might deserve to be on there, along with Friends and Frasier.
I kind of want to watch through Frasier again. I don't feel like I gave that show enough time compared to Friends and other shit. But I did want to mention one more thing before we sign off for the night. Something that you pointed out and I thought was interesting. If you want to understand the way we talk, there is something you have to get into for roughly a TV series duration. Professional wrestling.
I mean, shit, yeah, you're right. It's not on either of our lists because we don't watch it currently.
No, and it's like the news. Like, how do you recommend something that is perpetual?
Yeah, exactly. But to understand about half the words we say sometimes, you don't need to just watch professional wrestling.
No, you have to get into.
You have to get into. I think that's the difference. Is you could watch Friends and get your Friends references. You can watch The Simpsons and get The Simpsons references. You have to get to subscribing to the subreddit and beyond level into wrestling to understand some of the shit we say.
Have to watch some Cultaholic for a while.
Like old Cultaholic. Good Cultaholic.
They're probably still fine. It's just talking about a shittier product.
Old what culture?
Yeah, before the fucking fleeing. But, so this has been fun. A fun little triad of episodes. We are now dead and ghosts.
That's true.
And we encourage you to live a good life, Ultimo Dragon.
I'm a paradoxically much younger ghost than I was before. I don't know why.
I'm still old and upset about it.
The judge is the same.
Good.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.